My wife slept with her boss while I was paying off her student loans, so I took the car, the house, and left her with nothing. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and for most of the last decade, I truly believed I'd won at life. I married the girl I met in college, bright, driven, the kind who had dreams bigger than both of us. She wanted a marketing career, and I wanted to be the man who helped her get there. So when she graduated with nearly $90,000 in student loans, I told her not to worry. I'd take care of it. I picked up extra shifts at the warehouse, then started driving for rideshare on weekends. She used to joke that I was her personal Uber with benefits. And I'd laugh, because love, right? That's what you do when you're building a future. She got to focus on her career while I made sure the lights stayed on and the bills stayed paid. I cooked most nights. I did the laundry. I gave up my old Honda and took the bus so we could afford an apartment closer to her downtown office. Looking back, I don't know when the imbalance stopped feeling temporary. Maybe it was when she stopped saying thank you, or when our date nights quietly disappeared. But I chalked it up to stress. Climbing the corporate ladder was exhausting, and I didn't want to add to her load. Still, there were moments, quiet ones, when I'd be sitting alone at the dinner table, food getting cold, wondering why love suddenly felt so transactional. I ignored them, because love, I thought, was sacrifice, and I was sure, absolutely sure that she'd see it, appreciate it. That one day, it would all come back around, but I was wrong. So wrong, because while I was out there paying off her debt and pouring everything into us, she was giving herself to someone else, and I had no clue. It started with little shifts, barely noticeable at first, like hairline fractures in glass. She began coming home later. Client dinners, she'd say, breezing in around 10 p.m., the scent of wine clinging to her coat. I wanted to believe her. Hell, I did believe her at first. I'd ask how it went, and she'd shrug, eyes glued to her phone. No stories, no laughter, no details, just vague answers and tired sighs. She started dressing differently too, sharper, heels she never wore before, lipstick that left smudges on glasses but not on my skin. When I complimented her, she'd nod, distracted. It's for work, she'd say, like that explained everything. I told myself she was just growing, evolving in her career. I didn't want to be that insecure husband who questioned her ambition, so I stayed silent. I kept cooking, kept doing laundry, kept waking up at 5 a.m. for my shifts while she slept in. Then one afternoon, while sorting through the mail, I noticed something odd, a phone bill, but not our phone bill. It was addressed to her name from a carrier we didn't use. I opened it. It was a second phone line, hundreds of texts, late-night calls, all to one number I didn't recognize. My stomach turned. I waited for her to come home that night, clutching the bill like a piece of evidence in a crime I didn't want to believe happened. When I asked her about it, she didn't even flinch. Oh, she said, that's just a work phone. For emergencies. You don't need to worry about it. She kissed my cheek and walked into the bedroom like nothing happened. But something inside me had cracked. That night, I lay awake while she snored beside me, and I realized, for the first time, I didn't trust her. And once that seed of doubt is planted, it never really stops growing. A few weeks later, I decided to test the waters, see if the woman I married was still in there somewhere. Let's take a weekend off, I said one morning while making her coffee just the way she liked it. Oat milk, 2 sugars, cinnamon on top, just you and me, no work. We could drive out to the lake like we used to. She barely looked up from her phone. I can't. Big client dinner this weekend. Might run late. I forced a smile. I could come with you. Network a little. Meet the team? That's when she looked up, and for a split second, her eyes narrowed, just enough to betray something cold under the surface. It's not that kind of dinner, she said, tone sharp, almost rehearsed. It's exclusive. High-level execs, I nodded, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. Right, of course. That night, she didn't come home until after 2 a.m. I was on the couch, half asleep with the TV flickering in the dark, when she walked in, Her lipstick was smudged. Her blouse was unbuttoned one button too low. And she smelled like a man's cologne, citrusy, sharp, not mine. Sorry, she mumbled, kicking off her heels. Dinner ran late. Must have been some dinner, I said quietly, not looking at her. She stopped, turned to me slowly. What's that supposed to mean? I met her gaze. Nothing, just felt like I was testing a theory. Her face twisted into a mix of annoyance and pity. Are you seriously accusing me of something right now, after everything I do for us? God, you've been so needy lately. She went to bed. Alone. I stayed on the couch, staring at the ceiling. That was the first night I didn't say I love you before sleep, and it was the first night I knew something was seriously, dangerously wrong. It came from someone I didn't expect, one of her co-workers. I was finishing up a shift at the warehouse when I got a message from a blocked number. No greeting, just a screenshot. It showed her, my wife, getting into a sleek black Mercedes, passenger side, smiling, and behind the wheel was Ethan, her boss. I stared at it for a solid minute, my hands trembling so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I responded with a cautious, "Who is this?" But the only reply I got was, "You didn't hear it from me." But you deserve to know. That was the first time I'd ever heard his name outside of her work stories. Ethan, the charismatic VP of marketing. Recently divorced. Mid-40s, wealthy, the kind of guy who reeked of power and subtle charm. She used to call him demanding but brilliant, said he pushed her to be her best. Turns out, he was just pushing her into bed. Suddenly, every little detail began to make horrifying sense. The expensive perfume she only wore to work, the hidden second phone, the late nights, the client dinners, the defensive attitude. It wasn't paranoia. It was reality. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. Something undeniable. That night she came home humming, cheeks flushed like she'd had a great time. She kissed my forehead and said, "I might be getting a promotion soon," and I just smiled back. "Good for you," I said. "You deserve it," but my stomach was a knot of acid and fury. I wasn't angry because she cheated. I was angry because I sacrificed everything to lift her up, and she used that elevation to climb into another man's bed. So I did the one thing she didn't expect from her loyal, hard-working husband. I started preparing for war, quietly, patiently, strategically. I bought a GPS tracker off Amazon. Sleek, magnetic, and barely the size of a lighter. I slid it beneath her rear bumper one morning while she was in the shower, humming some pop song like life was perfect. I told myself it was just for clarity, but deep down, I already knew what I was going to find. Over the next 2 weeks, I tracked her every move. She still went to work, sure, but she also made frequent detours. And the address she visited most? Ethan's condo, always in the evenings. Sometimes for hours. On a Thursday night, she told me she had a late strategy session with a new client. I pretended to yawn and said, "Don't wait up." The second she left, I got in my brother's car and followed the dot on my phone. There she was, pulling into Ethan's underground parking, dressed like she was going to a date, not a meeting. I parked across the street, engine off, hands clenched on the wheel. An hour passed, then 2. Then I saw them, walking out of the building together. She was laughing. He had his hand on her lower back like he owned her. And then right before they got in his car, she turned toward him and kissed him. It wasn't a peck. It wasn't a mistake. It was slow, familiar, like it wasn't the first time, like it had never stopped. I raised my phone and took the picture. One, then another, then video. My heart was hammering so hard I felt dizzy, but my hand was steady. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, watching my wife, the woman I sacrificed everything for, kiss the man who never paid a cent of her debt, never folded her laundry, never stood by her when she had nothing. I didn't confront her that night, because I wasn't going to yell. I was going to destroy her, calmly, thoroughly, and in silence. The next morning, I called in sick. First time in years, but I wasn't sick. I was done playing the fool. I spent the entire day in a lawyer's office downtown, walking him through everything: the affair, the debt, the lease, the car, the accounts. He listened, nodded, then smiled.
"Everything's in your name?" "Everything," I said.
She insisted early on. Said it made paperwork easier, he chuckled. She gave you a gift. We went to work, quietly. I opened a new bank account, moved my direct deposit, froze our joint credit cards, changed passwords, documented everything: texts, emails, timestamps from the tracker, phone records, the photos. Then we drafted a financial separation agreement.
A clever one. It looked like a refinancing document, neutral, clean.
I told her it was for improving our credit so we could qualify for a mortgage next year. She barely read it before signing.
"You're such a planner,"
she said, giggling as she scribbled her name. I don't know how I'd survive without you. Neither did I, honestly. I started rerouting bills, moved our utilities under her name, put in a 30-day notice on the lease she hadn't even noticed yet. I even called the car insurance and had her removed from the policy. Each step was surgical. I didn't flinch. She was still laughing at TikToks in bed, texting Ethan under the covers, thinking she was the puppet master. But I had the strings now. Every sacrifice I'd made, every hour of labor, every dollar sunk into her future was about to pay off in the one way she never saw coming. She thought I was weak because I never raised my voice.
But men like me,
we don't explode. We erode the ground beneath your feet until there's nothing left to stand on, and she was almost there, almost at the edge. She stood in the kitchen one morning, sipping coffee from the mug I bought her on our first anniversary. Best wife ever. I was packing my work bag when she casually dropped the grenade. "Hey, babe," she said, almost too sweet. "Could you cover this month's student loan payment too? I had to use my card for a work dinner." She didn't flinch when she asked.
Didn't stutter.
Just said it like I was her personal ATM with a side of emotional stability. I stared at her. $18,000 left.
I had it almost down to single digits. My paychecks, my sacrifices.
And now she wanted me to keep paying while she snuck around in secret condos with her boss. I didn't say no. I didn't say anything. I just kissed her forehead, told her I'd see what I could do, and went to work with my jaw locked tight. That weekend, she told me she was going on a girls' trip.
"Just a few nights in the city," she said. "Spa, wine, recharge time." She was practically glowing with freedom. I smiled and said,
"You deserve it." She packed her bag, hugged me tight, and left with a wink. The second her Uber pulled away, I moved. I already had the boxes.
The garbage bags.
The storage unit booked. I called in help from my brother and a couple of friends. In under 6 hours, we gutted the apartment. Every dish, every towel, every photo frame, gone.
I left the mattress. That was hers. I cancelled the lease.
Shut down the utilities. Moved the car to a private garage. Deactivated her name from every account I could touch. The last thing I did before I left was place the framed photo of our wedding on the bare kitchen counter. On the back, I taped a note. "You chose him. Now choose how to crawl back from nothing." And then I walked out. I didn't block her yet. I wanted her to see what empty really felt like. She returned on a Sunday evening, expecting scented candles, Thai takeout, and maybe a fake smile from me. Instead, she walked into silence. No couch.
No dining table.
No TV, no framed photos, not even her favorite wine glasses, just a stripped apartment echoing with emptiness. Her voice cracked through the voicemail I let ring out on my burner phone. "Where the fucking are you?"
"What is this? What the hell did you do?" I didn't answer.
I was 3 states away, sitting on my brother's porch with a cold beer and no regrets. She blew up my phone for hours, text after text. At first it was confusion, then rage.
Then panic, but not once, not once.
Did she apologize? I left her the bare minimum. The mattress, some clothes, a single folding chair, and a breakup letter, not handwritten, not dramatic, just cold facts. A list of what I took: the car, registered to me, the savings, earned by me, the apartment, lease in my name, and my dignity. At the bottom I wrote, "I know about Ethan. I know everything." We're done. Then I signed it with just my initials. She tried calling my family. Most of them already knew. I'd sent them the photos and receipts before disappearing. My mom told her, "You broke him." He just finally put himself back together. She filed a police report, claimed I'd abducted her belongings. But when the officer arrived and saw the lease, the ownership, the financial documents, he handed her the report back and said, "Ma'am."
Legally, you have nothing here. And just like that,
She was left standing in a hollow apartment with no ride, no backup plan.
and no more lies to spin. She chose her new life the day she kissed Ethan. I just gave her the freedom she wanted.
Freedom that came with absolutely nothing attached. The first week after I vanished, she went scorched earth. She called every mutual friend, spinning some wild narrative that I'd stolen her life and vanished like a psychopath. A few reached out to me, hesitantly, but when I sent them the photos, the tracker logs, the second phone bill, they stopped responding to her altogether. I wasn't just gone. I was vindicated. She even showed up at my old job, apparently crying in the parking lot. Security had to walk her out. She told my boss I was emotionally abusive, that she feared for her safety. He looked her dead in the eye and said, "Lady, he worked overtime on holidays to pay your tuition. You broke him." Then came the calls from Ethan's wife. Yeah, he wasn't actually divorced like she said. Turns out she was just another office fling. His wife found out about the affair through my letter. She somehow got her hands on it and forwarded it to Ethan's corporate HR. Suddenly what my wife thought was her ticket to executive heaven became a career death sentence. HR launched a quiet investigation. My wife's name started floating around in whispers. She tried to deny everything, but Ethan went radio silent and threw her under the bus. Classic. Eventually, she was asked to resign, which is corporate speak for "leave now before we fire you and ruin your future." She was jobless, homeless, friendless, living at her sister's place across town, according to one mutual acquaintance who still fed me the occasional update. But I didn't gloat. I didn't respond.
I watched it all from a distance, calm and steady, like a man watching a storm he used to be trapped in finally burn itself out. She had built her world on lies.
I just turned the lights on and let everyone see. I didn't hear from her for almost a month after the job loss. Radio silence. No texts, no calls, no screaming voicemails. Then, out of nowhere, she sent me a message at 2:13 a.m. "Please."
Can we just talk?
I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was tempted to reply, but because I realized
That was it.
that was the voice of a woman who finally hit rock bottom.
Not when she got caught.
Not when she lost her job, but when no one else picked up her calls. I didn't respond. The next day, her sister messaged me, said she was spiraling, depressed, confused, not herself. Apparently, Ethan ghosted her. HR blacklisted her. Most of her so-called friends unfollowed her once they realized the kind of woman she really was. Even her parents stopped answering. Her mom called me, of all people, left a voicemail sobbing, "I don't know what happened to her."
She was never like this. I didn't have the heart to tell her that wasn't true.
She'd always been like this. I was just too blinded by love to see it. Debt collectors started calling her. The loan payments I used to cover, she let them lapse. She sold her laptop, then her handbags, then her wedding ring, I'm told, which barely fetched a few hundred. She even tried to get the car back. She filed a claim in small claims court. I showed up with a folder 3 inches thick. Documents, receipts, registration, her signature on the asset agreement. The judge read everything in silence, looked at her, then at me and said, "Mom,
I suggest you stop digging." She didn't look at me once. As I walked out of the courtroom, she sat alone on the bench.
shoulders slumped, purse clutched in her lap, like a kid waiting to be picked up from detention, but no one was coming. Not this time. After the court case, I went off the grid, deleted old accounts, got a new number, moved to a small town where nobody knew my name or my story. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up to chaos or tension. I woke up to silence.
And peace. I started therapy.
My first session, I broke down before I even said a word. All those years of pretending I was okay, of smiling through betrayal, of convincing myself that love meant endurance.
It finally cracked. I didn't even see it happening, I told the therapist. I thought I was doing everything right. She nodded.
You were. But you were doing it for someone who never deserved it. I started journaling.
I worked out.
I reconnected with friends I'd pushed away during my marriage.
I even started painting again, something I hadn't done since college.
At first, it was just shapes and angry colors. But slowly, it turned into something else. I paid off the last $2,000 of her student loans with one final payment. Not because she asked, not because I owed her, but because I didn't want her name tied to my money, my spreadsheets, my calendar, my anything ever again. It was closure, silent and satisfying. People ask if I regret paying off the other $88,000. If I regret all the time, energy, love, and sacrifice I gave to someone who used me like a ladder. Sometimes I do. But most days, I just feel grateful that I got out. I gave everything I had to someone who only saw me as useful. But now, every dollar I earn, every hour I live, every breath I take, belongs to me. And I'm finally learning how to breathe again. 1 year later, an envelope arrived at my new place. No return address, just my name, written in handwriting I'd memorized long ago. I knew it was from her before I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper.
No begging.
No explanations. Just this: I'm sorry.
I was stupid.
You were the best thing in my life.
I didn't realize it until everything was gone. No name at the bottom.
Just a smudged fingerprint where a tear must have landed. I folded it in half and tossed it in the fire pit behind my place. Some people would say I should have forgiven her, that maybe she'd learned her lesson. But forgiveness isn't something you owe, it's something you choose. And I chose to forgive myself for trusting the wrong person. She got what she deserved, I got what I earned. A new life. I bought a small truck, started a side business doing woodwork just like my dad used to.
I got a dog, Rusty, a rescue with anxious eyes and a heart bigger than his body.
I even started seeing someone new. Nothing serious, just gentle, honest. Sometimes
I still think about how close I came to giving up everything, my future, my spirit,
my self-worth, for someone who never planned to give anything back. But that's the thing about hitting rock bottom. You finally see what's real. And what's real is this: I didn't just walk away from her.
I walked toward the man I was always meant to be. Strong, clear, free. So no, I didn't just take the car. I didn't just take the house. I took back my dignity. I took back my peace. And I left her with the only thing she gave me in the end: regret.